Well, I don't know how it's going to change, Mike. Look at the lineup and tell me how they're going to score. It was great to have people talk about the chemistry and the vibe and how spunky they were and how pesky they were. All that's great. But it really comes down to talent. And if you honestly, dispassionately look at their lineup, tell me how they're going to score. They're hitting .215 as a team. Tell me how they're going to score, Mike.
I don't know that I have that answer for you because two of the guys that provided a lot of offense for them are starting to get older. Let's start with Chase Utley. He went 3 for 3 the other night, and people thought, all right, here's Chase. Maybe he's coming around. But other than that, he started 2 for 22, and he's 0 for 9 since that time, Jay. Father Time catches up and beats up a lot of us. I think a lot of people were hoping it didn't catch Utley now. He's got 3 years, $15 million per on that contract after this year. But has Father Time caught up to Chase in 2015?
Well, look, he catches up with everybody. I think he's allowed, but I actually think Chase is not as big a worry as the first baseman. I know we're going to get to him. I think Chase is going to figure out a way to be reasonably productive. He's not going to be the Chase Utley of 2007 or 2009 anymore. Just doesn't do that. And his swing has just been totally out of whack for the most part. The percentage of pitches he's swung at has been nearly at a career low, which tells us he's taking way too many strikes, right? So he's taking the strikes, swinging at the balls. His contact rate when he swings, lowest rate of at any point in his career. And the thing that's really bizarre is all the ground balls he's hit. He had 11 straight seasons coming into this year with more fly balls and ground balls, and then this year almost twice as many ground balls as fly balls. So I think that what that tells us is his swing just kind of got out of whack after he left spring training, and I think he can probably figure out a way to be better than this. I think what's important is that he not be a 7-day-a-week player anymore. I know he talks his way or glares his way in the lineup. That just can't happen, man. He cannot have another year where Chase Utley, at his age, plays 140 games. It's just not productive.
Well, you mentioned that he glares his way into the lineup. I guess Ryan Sandberg finally didn't give in to the glare of Ryan Howard. He got moved to the 7-hole. Is this the first sign that he will become a platoon part-time player, and if he is playing, he is going to have a smaller role than he's had in the past?
I think we know that this is heading for an unhappy ending. I can't write it yet. I can't script it yet, but it's just all trending in a bad way. And I feel bad about that because we saw some great stuff from this man, and he's, of all the people who have passed through that clubhouse, he's probably the most level-headed, most normal, most down-to-earth superstar who's been a Philly for a long time. Other than the fact he's building a $30 zillion house, he really hasn't changed a whole lot. But he's changed drastically as a player, and I don't think anybody knows what to do about it. The first thing that's clear is this guy should not be hitting cleanup in anybody's lineup. And I don't care if it's a right-hander or a left-hander or what kind of hander. There's just no justification for that. Just look at the season that he's had. 8 games he's played, 0 walks, swinging at the first pitch half the time, making, very mediocre contact when he makes contact at all. All the fastballs he's been thrown is just mind-boggling. Over 50% of the pitches that Ryan Howard has seen this year have been fastballs, and you're seeing the results. When he was at his best, who threw him a fastball? There was a time not that long ago where he saw the highest percentage of breaking balls, and especially breaking balls and fastball counts, of any pitcher in baseball because nobody wanted to throw him a fastball. Now you see no fear of it. And how do you handle that if you're the manager? Drop him in the lineup, platoon him, hope something happens that makes it turn out a little better. But so far, there just hasn't been any sign of that.
ESPN.com senior baseball writer Jayson Stark with us here. And, Jay, you look at obviously that situation with Howard is sad because there was a time there where top 5 MVP, 4 years running there. He won an MVP award. And, yeah, he had a little bit of a drop-off, but it is becoming almost sad to watch how it might end for him here. And then you take a look at what's behind him. That's part of the problem. It doesn't seem like they're willing to give Darren Ruff an everyday shot and just say, you're the guy, Ryan, you're going to go to the bench. Because you just mentioned, I guess with that contract, they got to at least platoon him part-time here. But until they are able to move him, is he blocking the potential to bring up somebody like a Maikel Franco?
He blocks a whole bunch of different options as long as he's here. I think for a couple of years now they've been playing him as much as they have, hoping that he got it going and somebody would eventually trade for him. I actually had a conversation with a scout a few days ago who said he was trying to brighten the skies a little bit, and his prediction was that he's not going to be as abysmal as he's looked so far. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? He said, I think he could hit 25 homers. And I said, do you think he could be good enough that you would ever recommend that your team trade for him? And this is a guy for an American team. He went, hell no. And that's the problem. There's just no scenario that we see right now where somebody takes him off their hands. The other teams see what we're seeing. And, the ripple effect is one that you just kind of portrayed. If he's not here, you can find out whether Darren Ruff can play every day, or at least in a platoon with Utley. You could move Utley to first, either full-time or part-time, and see how good Cesar Hernandez can be if he plays his actual position instead of all these positions that he really can't play. You could bring up Maikel Franco and play him at first, or you could do a lot of different things, but you can't do any of them as long as you're at least semi-obligated to play Ryan Howard. It's really an awful situation. And, the thing that they were hoping for is just not to embarrass him, right? Find some way out of this where you take all the money and you take a body in return, trade him for somebody else's problem. They haven't had any luck doing any of that. And so where's it going to lead, man?
Yeah, it's a very sad ending to this, possibly, if there is an ending in sight. Jayson Stark's with us, driven by Team Nissan of Vineland. And, Jason, how about Cole Hamels? 2 more homers, 5 runs over 6 innings. He had the balk last night. I mean, he's a notorious slow April starter, but are the signs there that maybe this is a little bit too much for him right now, that his name is top on many people's list, and it's starting to set in that this team's not going to be very good, and I'm going to have a long summer until I get to that deadline?
Well, the danger of holding on to him was something like this. Either he got hurt or he didn't perform. And, I'm assuming that Cole is going to figure it out. If you can kind of get past the home runs, which is hard to do right now, he's actually been pretty good. The problem is every time he gives up a hit, it leaves the yard. 7 home runs this year, 3 singles. It's bizarre, right? It's a guy who gave up 7 homers in his last 17 starts combined last year, and he's given up 7 in 3 starts this year. And if you look at that, and you look at the walk total, and you just watch him pitch, it's. I think what's clear is he just hasn't been able to find his delivery yet, and his command has been terrible at times. And so the walks and the home runs have killed his whole season. The batting average against is under the Mendoza line. There's a ton of strikeouts. It tells you the stuff is still there, but his delivery is not good. And, if he doesn't straighten it out, then so much for the idea of trading him for somebody's whole farm system.
Yeah, and, obviously they're really are they banking on getting something for him? Are they holding out hope and that, in the back of our minds, we are going to get something from him, whether or not it's now or then. But is that a given?
It's never a given. This is an interesting question of when's the right time to trade a guy like this. And, all right, let's play devil's advocate and give Ruben the benefit of the doubt just a little bit. Right? Let's think back to last offseason where Ruben's strategy going in was, all right, let's wait till the big free agents sign. Wait till Lester and Scherzer and Shields all sign. There was never a day through the whole offseason where they were all off the board. James Shields didn't sign till like a week before spring training. And so that had an effect. It also meant that there was a plan B for any team that wanted to trade for him, and it really came into play with the Padres. The one team I thought they had a chance to make a deal with was the Padres, and eventually they said, we're not giving up what you want. We'll go sign James Shields. So they did. So then what Ruben decided was the way to go was, let's be patient. Let's wait till July or June or whenever, and let's just assume that Cole Hamels will be the very best pitcher that anybody can trade for when we get to midseason. And at that point, his theory is somebody was going to give up what they asked. He always had the chance to make a good deal. He was trying to make a great deal. That's still the goal. But the danger in that is the longer you wait, the more it increases the chances that the guy gets hurt or that he doesn't pitch well. And right now he's not pitching well. So there is always risk in waiting, and you're finding out why.
Do you think that he is still, though, the most likely guy to be moved, and is he still the best potential pitcher that teams can acquire at the deadline?
I think that depends on some other moving parts. Are the Reds going to contend? If the Reds don't contend, then Johnny Cueto is out there, and he is a rental, and he's not going to be as expensive to trade for as Cole was. And so I do think that ultimately Ruben's not going to get what he wants. I had a guy from another team a couple weeks ago start running through every club that could potentially trade for him, every club with money, every club with prospects. And this guy made the case, not one of them is ever going to give up what Ruben wants. The Red Sox are never giving up Mookie Betts and Blake Swihart. They're never doing that, right? The Dodgers are never giving up Jock Peterson and Corey Seager. Never doing that. The Cardinals, are they going to blow up their farm system and pay him more than Adam Wainwright? The Padres just made their big deal for James Shields. The Rangers aren't very good right now, right? Why would they do it in July? There's just so many factors out there now that act as a warning sign that they're never going to get what they want. And so what happens then? What happens if Ruben gets to July and says the price is still the price, and I'm not taking lower than 100 cents on the dollar, and nobody wants to pay 100 cents on the dollar? Then you're in the next winter with about 7 ace starters on the free agent market. Harder to trade then than it'll be in July. At some point, they've got to cut the best deal they can cut. That's the way I would look at it.
Yeah, and another guy, the cutting the best deal you can cut. Could the best deal they cut be for Jonathan Papelbon down the road here? Maybe he's been pitching pretty well. Is one team out there going to finally buckle and say, you know what, our bullpen is in shambles, and this guy's just pitching too well? Because he's gotten out of the gates with another good start here to the season. Is he a guy that maybe not a lot of optimism could have traded him at the beginning of the year, but as he continues to pitch well, that optimism could rise? No?
Yeah, look, there's still complications with him, as we know. One of them is obviously his personality. We saw a little burst of that a week or so ago, the stuff he told the Boston media. And I've had other teams say to me, I can't put that guy in my clubhouse. And yet, I don't think really he's as big a problem in the clubhouse as he's often made out to be by those of us on the outside. But it doesn't matter. Perception is reality, and if that's the perception, that works against him. And then that vesting option was another huge problem. The Phillies would have to make some sort of arrangement where they would agree to pay a portion of the vesting option if it vests, if he goes to one of the teams that he can't veto. If it's one of the teams that he can veto, like there are talks with Milwaukee this year, the only way he was going was if that option were guaranteed. Now, maybe by the time we get to mid-season, it's going to be so clear that the option is going to vest that you can more easily assess what the cost is and who should pick up what. But all that stuff is hung over any potential deal for this guy, and it hasn't changed a whole lot. Over several years now, they've been trying to trade him for 2 years. But I do think as time goes by and the amount of money that's still remaining on that deal, even if he vests, gets smaller and smaller, it gets easier to trade him.
Jayson Stark's with us, ESPN.com senior baseball writer, driven by Team Nissan of Vineland. He'll be joining us on Fridays throughout the baseball season. And, Jay, I tell you, by about the mid part of this season, I would assume that there's going to be a lot of talk about, younger players and if they're going to get called up and we'll get a chance to see some of these guys. That being said, this team right now has got a lot of veterans. We talked about Grady Sizemore when you were on with us a couple of weeks ago. Jeff Francoeur is hitting in the 4-hole. You got Jerome Williams throwing, Sean O'Sullivan. But there is Aaron Harang. Do you feel that if he continues this, that he could have been the diamond in the rough that can get them something of value if he continues pitching this well?
I do. That's the kind of one-year signing that a lot of teams make nowadays, teams that don't think they're going to contend. Look what the Cubs have done over the last couple of years with Scott Feldman and Jason Hamels, and you're supposed to sign those kinds of guys. And Aaron Harang is a great teammate. He's a total pro. And he's a guy who, if he's pitching well enough, you can get something for. Not a lot, but you can get something. And that's the whole idea. And, you look at what the Cubs did last year when they bundled the two pitchers that they had for sale, right? And maybe the Phillies can bundle Aaron Harang and Cole Hamels and get more. I don't know. There's always ways to do it. Look what the Braves were able to do with B.J., I guess we're calling him Melvin Upton Jr. You attach a guy you can't wait to get rid of to a guy that you not sure if you want to get rid of, and it's amazing what you can accomplish. So there are a lot of different possibilities here, but Aaron Harang does present some, and that's turning out to be a good signing so far.
Yeah, one of the underlining factors of the season will be to see what they can do, because last year they did that, a little bit of that with Roberto Hernandez. They did it this offseason with Marlon Byrd, so they have got veterans on these deals and were able to do some things, and hopefully they'll be able to do that, because it doesn't seem like that major deal has worked out for them, but some of these smaller deals have worked out, and a lot of people talking about that rotation down at Reading here, and obviously that's one thing that Phillies fans are going to keep an eye on. Have the early reports on those guys been positive?
Yeah, for the most part, and you can include Jesse Biddle in that too. So far, he's done real well. I think it's easy to get carried away with those guys, and you recognize that you're not looking at the next Cole Hamels anywhere in that group, but you are looking at 5 guys who should pitch in the big leagues if they stay healthy and they progress normally. So they haven't had any pitching depth close to the big leagues, none. They really had almost nobody to call up. The fact that they're plugging a Scott O'Sullivan kind of guy, a Sean O'Sullivan kind of guy into a rotation, is another sign of how barren their farm system is. But those deals they made over the winter helped replenish. And you can bring guys up from Reading. If Severino Gonzalez isn't ready, or Joely Rodriguez, the guy they got for Bastardo, isn't ready, you've got some options. So that's the best thing you can say about the system, is they do have starting pitching options who are not so far away.
Well, we'll see how far away the Phillies are going to be from the top of the division by the end of the weekend here. They play the Nationals and Max Scherzer tonight. Jayson Stark, ESPN.com senior baseball writer, driven by Team Nissan of Vineland, will join us on Fridays here throughout the baseball season. And your statistic that you wrote out there, I couldn't believe, about the fact that all of these teams with payrolls over $100 million. You're right. It just seemed like some teams a couple of years ago seemed like their payrolls were in like the $30 million range. Like the Marlins barely could get to $25 million, and now this many teams over $100 million. Is baseball thriving to that point where that's just a drop in the bucket now, huh?
Yeah, you're talking about a piece that I wrote that posted on our site yesterday. I would urge people to read the whole thing, but the gist of it was this. As only 3 years ago, you know how many teams we had with $100 million payrolls? That answer is 9. And you know how many we had on opening day this year? The answer is 22. It's incredible how much money there is in the sport and how it's changing the landscape of the sport. So that, look, people look at the Dodgers with a $270 million payroll and say everything's still out of whack. The Dodgers are really the outlier. When you peel it away, you see that there are forces at work now especially since the latest labor deal kicked in 2012, that are motivating the teams at the top to spend less and the teams at the bottom to spend more, and that's what we're seeing. We only have 6 teams under $90 million, only 3 teams under $85 million payroll. It's incredible how the sport has changed, and everybody has enough money to win now. The system isn't perfect. A lot of people have been debating me about this on Twitter, but it's really interesting to look at this and see how things have changed. We had 3 of the top 8 teams in payroll last year finished last. Meanwhile, you got a bunch of teams at the bottom. 4 of the 6 teams spending under $90 million have been in the postseason either one or both of the last 2 years. So things have really changed in baseball, and it's gotten much harder to blame the system for all your problems.
And we thought when the Phillies started to, put money into the team that this would be the start of them being competitive, and they were for a while, but it just goes to show that spending money doesn't get you there if you make bad decisions, and that's where the Phillies kind of are right now.
You think?
Jayson Stark, ESPN.com, senior baseball writer. And don't forget to check out Jason during Mike and Mike on Tuesdays with his trivia question, which I don't know that the guys have gotten right in about 2 years now. So you're running on a good streak.
I just in fairness to them, they actually got 2 in a row right this year. And I don't think they've ever had a 2-question winning streak that I remember in the past. And there's a really good chance they're not going to have one again. Let's just put it that way.
All right, Tuesday morning with Jay, and Friday's here with us on the Sports Pass. Jason, looking forward to it, man. We appreciate it so much.
Likewise, Mike. Have a great weekend, man.